For those who don't know, the Dark Empire was Palpatine's secret empire within the Deep Core headquartered at Biss, and would be covertly built up by the reborn Emperor Palpatine in the post-Endor era, as he regained his strength to launch an invasion of the galaxy during Operation Shadow Hand in 10 ABY. The Dark Empire relied on massive Star Destroyers, super weapons, and world devastators to make gains against the New Republic. However, Palpatine's first death came on the Eclipse 1, and then he spawned into a new clone body to continue his work. But Palpatine would be betrayed by the royal guard Carnor Jax, who bribed the Emperor's physician, and Jax, along with his co-conspirators, would sabotage and destroy all but one of Palpatine's clone bodies on Biss. And after Palpatine's final defeat, Jax forged an alliance with General Wessel and reformed the Dark Empire into the Crimson Empire, which he ruled with the Imperial Ruling Council. During Jax's plot, meetings to secure support for Jax's plan were treated with the utmost secrecy, and any person who disagreed with Jax's plan or who acted as though they would reveal the plan to Palpatine was immediately killed, often by the hand of Jax's assassin, who was an overweight Imperial lieutenant named Blim. Several times it would seem that the plan would be revealed and that they would be executed as traitors, but quick actions and foresight by the overweight Imperial officer stopped Jax's plans from being revealed. But what if Carnor Jax did not betray Palpatine? Say he either decides that despite his ambitions he remains loyal to the Dark Empire and won't bribe Palpatine's position to destroy the clone bodies on Biss, or if one of Jax's meetings got revealed, let's say Blim is too out of shape to assassinate one single snitch who reveals the plot and everyone involved is executed. With that, Palpatine will be free to transfer his other now living bodies instead of undergoing a plan to force his essence into the newly born baby Anakin Solo. With that, the Dark Empire continues, and with the destruction of the Rebel base on Da Sucha and at Space City by the Galaxy Gun, the New Republic is scattered, vanishing into the galaxy. The Dark Empire, for all intents and purposes, has won in driving the Alliance into complete hiding. However, in opposition to this military action was the Emperor's waning health, where Palpatine's power in the dark side was slowly causing his mind to degenerate. But here Palpatine won't have to launch the Battle of Onderon, which ended the Dark Empire's reign. Instead, like I said, he'll just transfer into other bodies. But can the Dark Empire be sustained? Well, Papa Palp still has his Eclipse 2 Dreadnought and the Galaxy Gun, in addition to the fact that Biss hasn't been destroyed. The Dark Empire essentially controls most of the galaxy, as the remains of the New Republic have begun to submit. If the Dark Empire acts rationally, they would use the Galaxy Gun to target Onderon to wipe out the New Republic's remaining heroes. However, as we have seen throughout the expanded universe, Palpatine wasn't the most tactically gifted leader, and at times would be kind of an idiot. As the Dark Empire maintains control, Palpatine would immediately begin mass purges, not just of the New Republic and occupied persons, but also within the Imperial ranks. Remember, Palpatine played a role in the Imperial Mutiny, and allowed for the Empire to tear itself apart to weed out the weak and those who he considered unworthy. Palpatine would also cut off support for many Imperial warlords who had aligned with the Dark Empire, as he would see them as disloyal and start purging them from his ranks as well. New Republic forces are also in complete disarray. Following the defeat of the Galactic Empire, the Rebel Alliance had begun to reform into a legitimate galactic power, but following the Dark Empire's onslaught in Operation Shadow Hand, with Palpatine back in power, the idea of any New Republic offensive simply doesn't exist. Rebellion against the new Empire resumes, but the Dark Empire's hold of the galaxy will be far more brutal than the previous Empire, as the reborn Emperor begins naval forces to become automated with fighters. Another issue for the New Republic and Rebellion at this time is that Kir Kanos is still part of the Empire and operates in service of Palpatine. Since there's no betrayal by Jax or the Crimson Empire, Kanos will not go on a one-man rampage against the Empire for the betrayal of Palpatine. Additionally, the Empire will not see a liberalization process or any kind of democratization without Jax's reign. Pretty much, things are going to be pretty bleak for the galaxy. The Dark Empire will also conduct mass militarization, research and development on more super weapons, and other efforts to prepare for an incursion into the unknown regions, as Palpatine knew about the Yuzang Vong and other threats within the area, which he not only wanted to defend against, but also Palpatine wanted to control the entire galaxy. With that, the Empire of the Hand does still exist in the unknown regions, and is being funded by Palpatine, even as his Dark Empire is repressing the rest of the galaxy and has begun to replace its forces with automated forces. Palpatine's eventual downfall will come, though. As more of the Imperial military gets purged and replaced with droids, senior military leaders and their respective forces will turn on the Emperor, as will regional governors and Imperial Moffs, who had held control over their own territories, but with the Dark Empire had to submit everything back to Palpatine. The reborn Emperor will initially see them as breakaway warlords, but as another Imperial civil war escalates, more security forces will be defecting from the Dark Empire. Additionally, Imperial elements who left to join the secret Empire of the Hand will begin making preparations to strike at the deep core. Super weapons which had once served the Dark Empire will also be turned against Palpatine, and the final battle of this civil war will be over Biss, where the Biss Defense Fleet comes up against the Imperial Navy that isn't automated and is along with a ragtag fleet of commandeered vessels from the old Empire and former warlord eras. The only way it ends is with the destruction of Biss and Palpatine's cloning facilities, and with the loss of the Emperor, the Dark Empire falls apart into vast warlord kingdoms, with the bulk of the Empire returning to its original galactic imperial form. That's just my opinion, but what do you think would have happened had Carnor Jax not been able to betray Palpatine and the Dark Empire? Write in the comments, and thank you for watching.